And then, listen to this. At the press conference the next day, his press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, spun this by saying, it's actually admirable. He said, it's the president being frank and open and honest. That's good. Well, in that case, shut up, bitch.
Bill Maher just ended Karoline Leavitt's credibility on national television, and she handed him the ammunition herself. This wasn't some backroom gossip or a leaked audio clip. This was a White House press conference. Official, on the record, the whole world watching. And what came out of her mouth was so reckless, so indefensible, and so detached from basic reality that Maher didn't even need to try hard. He just held her own words up to the light and watched them disintegrate. Buckle up. It's going to be destructive for Karoline Leavitt today.
At the press conference the next day, his press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, spun this by saying, it's actually admirable. He said, it's the president being frank and open and honest. That's good. Well, in that case, shut up, bitch.
Leavitt's statement centers on one explosive idea, that illegal immigrants are, in her exact words, the main support base of the Democratic Party.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals.
Not a factor, not a piece of the puzzle. The main support base. That's the claim she made, standing behind a White House podium with the full weight of her position behind every word. And for Maher, that statement is not just wrong, it is so far removed from reality that it collapses the instant you hold it up to even basic scrutiny.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals.
You saw in that clip, horrible, what she really...
Because here is what makes this fall apart before it even gets off the ground. Illegal immigrants cannot vote in federal elections. That is not a Democratic talking point. That is not a progressive opinion. That is United States law. They cannot register. They cannot cast a ballot. They cannot participate in the electoral process in any legal capacity whatsoever. So when Leavitt stands at that podium and calls them the main support base of an entire political party, Maher's question is as simple as it is devastating. Support base? How?
To roam in American streets.
This is the president's spokesperson. This is not just somebody at the end of the bar. Right. This is not just somebody ranting on social media. The Democratic Party's main constituency is made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. The Democratic Party's main constituency. And this is what the No Kings thing is about, if people are wondering, is that it looks to me like either they really believe this, which is insane, or they are just always looking for a pretext to say, to let the other side take over this country is just unthinkable. I mean, if you really believe this, I would vote for a right-wing coup if I really thought half the country was Hamas terrorists.
And Maher does not ease into this. He rolls the clip in full, lets every word breathe, lets the audience sit with what was actually said, and then he starts pulling it apart. Not with emotion, not with outrage, but with the kind of cold, methodical logic that leaves no room for escape.
But having your press secretary say that the Democratic Party's main constituency is made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals, that's deranged.
It is deranged.
He starts with evidence, or more accurately, the complete absence of it. Because if you are going to stand at the highest level of government communication and tell the American public that undocumented immigrants are the foundation of a major political party, that is not a casual opinion. That is a claim that demands data, studies, numbers, something. And according to Maher, there is nothing. No sourcing, no research, no foundation underneath any of it. Just a statement delivered with enough confidence to make people assume it must be true.
Now, are there dumb, college-age, useful idiots who march for Hamas? Yes, that exists. As does Democrats who stupidly enabled way too many migrants to enter the country. But that is a far cry from the main constituency of the party being terrorists or being illegal aliens.
Then he sharpens the blade further. Because it is not just the lack of evidence that bothers him, it is the logic itself. The entire architecture of the claim contradicts what we already know to be legally true. You cannot be a political support base if you are legally excluded from political participation. That is not a gray area. That is not open to interpretation. That is a structural impossibility. And Maher lays that contradiction bare, clearly, directly, and without leaving Leavitt anywhere to retreat to. But then he goes somewhere most critics wouldn't bother going. He stops analyzing what she said and starts analyzing how she said it.
So yes, each side has its crazies, and I'll grant you, at least the right has found a place for theirs. Unfortunately, that place is elected government. It should not be the case that the White House press spokesperson sounds exactly like the worst Karen at Dollar General.
Exactly.
He replays the clip. Same words, but this time, he is watching the performance, the posture, the rhythm, the almost mechanical certainty in her delivery, as if the statement had been rehearsed so many times that the question of whether it was actually true never even entered the conversation. And Maher mirrors it. He copies the cadence, matches the tone, imitates the delivery with surgical precision, and in doing so, he strips the whole thing of its authority. What sounded commanding at the podium suddenly sounds hollow on replay. And that shift is not cosmetic. It is fatal to the credibility of the message.
The president absolutely has the moral high ground over the Iranian terrorist regime, and for you to...
Then he raises the stakes, because Maher's argument is not just about one bad claim. It is about what happens when people in positions of genuine power treat facts as optional. Karoline Leavitt is not a commentator. She is not a pundit fishing for clicks. She speaks from the White House. Her words get broadcast, quoted, archived, and absorbed by millions of people who may never bother to fact-check what they just heard. And that, Maher argues, is where the real danger lives. Not in the statement itself, but in the expectation that no one will challenge it. That confidence alone is enough to make something true. That volume can permanently replace evidence.
About that.
They're not taking the Governor Schwarzenegger approach to trying to bring people together. That's for sure.
I think they're signaling to all right-wing media. That's what they do really well. The top creates the rage bait, and then all the right-wing podcasters and all the right-wing news sources, they go and get in alignment with the same thing.
And he takes it one step further. Because this is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern, a strategy, a mode of political communication that has been growing louder and more aggressive for years. Say something massive. Say it fast. Say it with total conviction. And by the time anyone gets around to questioning it, the clip has already done its job. Impact over accuracy, reaction over substance, performance over proof. And Maher says this is exactly where political discourse goes to die. Not in one dramatic moment, but in the slow, steady erosion of any expectation that the people speaking to us should actually be telling us the truth. But Maher is careful here. He does not dismiss the issue underneath the rhetoric. He says it plainly. Immigration is real. It is complicated. It affects communities, economies, and lives in ways that deserve serious, honest conversation. And that is exactly why claims like this make things worse. Because when you exaggerate an issue this badly, you do not bring attention to it. You bury it. You turn a real problem into a political weapon. And the people who are actually affected, on every side, get lost in the noise.
Well, thank you for bringing this up, Caroline. I've seen this CBS report floating around. There's a lot of liberal talking heads and pundits and Democrat elected politicians who think that this single story and these statistics and the way they are painted is somehow a shot at this administration. It is not, and let me correct the record. Number one, the Trump administration has been clear from day one that any illegal alien present in this country is subject to deportation. However, the priority, of course, is going after the convicted criminals, the worst of the...
Then Maher does what almost no one in these conversations is willing to do. He flips the mirror. He asks one question, and it changes the entire frame. What if a Democrat made a claim this broad, this sweeping, this completely unsupported about Republicans? Would anyone accept it? Would it slide by without challenge? Or would it be shredded within the hour? And that question does not just hang in the air, it lands, because it exposes something Maher has been circling around the entire time. A double standard so deep and so ingrained that most people do not even notice it anymore. Accountability when it is convenient, silence when it is not. Standards that shift depending on who is speaking and who is listening.
That's not what the secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not... We've never had a Secretary of Defense. Who cares more?
Drones get through or tragic things happen. It's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad. Yeah, as you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN.
And right here, Maher's tone shifts. He is no longer just responding to a clip. He is issuing a warning, because what he sees happening is not just about one press secretary or one bad statement. It is about a trajectory, a direction. A political culture that is moving further and further away from any expectation of truth, and closer to a world where the only thing that matters is whether the clip goes viral, where statements are not designed to hold up under questioning. They are designed to spread before anyone gets the chance to question them, where being loud has become more valuable than being right, and where the people with the biggest platforms feel no obligation whatsoever to prove a single word they say.
The president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel.
And then Maher comes back to Leavitt one final time, not with anger, not with mockery, with a challenge. You made the claim, now back it up. You stood behind that podium with total certainty. You delivered it like it was an undeniable fact, so show us what it was built on. Show the data, show the research, show anything. Because if there is nothing behind it, if the entire thing was confidence without substance, volume without proof, performance without foundation, then it was never a strong argument. It was just a loud one. And this is where the whole thing lands, not as a single moment of political drama, but as a mirror held up to something much bigger. The growing distance between what is claimed and what can actually be proven, the widening gap between how things sound and what they actually mean, and the uncomfortable reality that we are watching this happen in real time, from the highest levels of power, and very few people are demanding better. So here's what I want you to sit with before you scroll away. If a claim this big can be made from a White House podium with zero evidence and zero consequences, what claim can't be? At what point did we decide that confidence is an acceptable substitute for proof? And why are we still letting that slide? And if the people with the most power and the biggest platforms are not being held to basic standards of honesty, who exactly is supposed to hold the rest of us accountable? Drop your answers below. I'll see you in the next one.